Has it hit you yet as, I guess, how heavy of a job it is?
Oh yeah, I'm very well aware where I'm at, and that's why I changed that button. But with that being said, that's also why I came here.
Yeah.
And it's probably the only job in the country that I would have left the job that I was at for.
Podcast to Jay Johnson, the new LSU head baseball coach, heading into year one. As we said, school officially back in session today, which means that practice becomes official for the LSU baseball team. We know that it was volunteer work for the past couple of weeks, Coach, for the LSU baseball team. But how have the past couple of weeks been as you prepare for season one? Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's been good. We had a good fall, good break. It appears that most of the players did what they needed to do in their off time in terms of the things that we put in front of them. We were able to start up on Saturday and got out there on Saturday and Sunday for a little bit and ready for a full week this week. So full steam ahead.
What was the emphasis in off-season number one for you? I know it was abbreviated with everything of you coming over and starting on the job and learning about Baton Rouge and the facility and the program, but what was the emphasis that you wanted to implement in a very talented group heading into your first season?
Yeah, for me, there's a lot of things that come along with being at LSU, but the emphasis is development. The emphasis is improvement on a daily basis. And what I would say is establishing an identity for our team and our program, developing our systems and techniques. Sounds a little football-ish, but we have that element in baseball too. And then now we're in a phase where we're talking about coming together as a team, and that's a really important element of things. And we'll kind of work on that before we go into the season. So, those three things kind of jump out at me as what's been on priorities, and then the players, getting all of them better and getting all of them to the best version of themselves and getting some things lined up for them that are really specific so they can be the best player they can be and we can move in a good direction. So all positive, but really anxious to get the NCAA hour rule changed off and go to work.
Coach, I know, you have a relatively young team, but a lot of these guys, especially the sophomore class, they got a lot of playing time last year, which, that makes them grow up pretty quick. What have you seen in the short time you've been here in the fall and the individual workouts? What have you seen with these guys, and how much growth have they made over the course of a year?
Yeah, the team's been great. I've mentioned this before, just in terms of initial buy-in. That is so important if you want to win quickly. And it doesn't mean that they trust you right away. I think it's the coach's job to come in and establish a foundation of how we're going to do things and earn that trust. But I've been very pleased with the buy-in of the players' ability to change some things, maybe how they were done in the past, and guide them on a plan towards improvement. And I've seen that out of a lot of guys. I think you might see some guys that maybe were in the background a little bit last year, both on the pitching side and the hitting side, move towards the forefront. We certainly have some really talented players. Dylan Cruz, in my opinion, is one of the best players in the country. One of the most talented guys I've ever seen in college baseball, frankly. And Trey Morgan, some really good pieces like that to work with. And it's been fun, in that regard. And now I'm looking forward to that next phase of we've really outlined what we think we need to do well to be successful as a team. And we got about a month now to go to work on that before we kick it off for real, which is really exciting.
I was going to ask you, you mentioned that there's some guys that maybe took a back seat last year to some of the stars. Who are some of those guys that have made a big jump that people are going to be shocked to see out there that say, oh, man, this guy looked completely different than what we saw last year?
Yeah, Cade Beloso kind of comes to mind. I mean, he's had some early success in his career here. Did not have a very good season last year. We made some immediate changes in terms of his swing, in terms of his approach to what he was doing. His really good hand-eye, manages the strike zone incredibly well. And if he can continue to take the quality at bats that he did in the fall, he's a really valuable piece, that maybe you don't think of when you think of Dylan Cruz, Trey Morgan, Jacob Berry, Cade Doty. Cade Doty is another one who's always been a starter since he's been here. Kind of that guy on our team that I think is maybe overlooked a little bit. But I don't know that there's going to be anybody that's going to positively contribute to winning and success on our team as much as Cade. I think on the pitching side of things, Coach Kelly has come in and done a nice job. I think Ty Floyd was a freshman that had a lot of potential last year, has really developed his secondary pitches to go along with a really good fastball. Devin Fontenot, trying to get him more innings as one of their more effective pitchers last year. Does a good job hiding the ball. His changeups come a long way, so we could probably extend him a little bit more. Those guys come to mind. And then excited about the pieces we had. It was a pretty crazy end of June, all of July and August to get this roster put together, and hopefully we can match up a little bit better and go for it.
Coach Jay Johnson of LSU Baseball joining us here on the Jordy Culotta Show, driven and powered by Go Chevrolet. You mentioned Cruz, Coach, and this sophomore class has been highlighted over the last couple of weeks in talking about their talent. Can you go in more on to guys like Jacob Berry and Trey Morgan, of guys that have high expectations in year 2 of college baseball, and just kind of where they fit in with LSU going into year 1?
Yeah, for sure. And happy to talk about that. There's this obviously LSU, and I was obviously interested in the job when I was approached by it, but there was another layer to it, that there were some really good players in place that I thought could play better than they did. And we want them to play better. They need to play better. I mean, we were in ninth. LSU was a 9th place team in the SEC last year. We want to move up the deal and get back into that top tier. And those two guys you mentioned can certainly help us do that. In terms of Trey, he has as good a hand-eye coordination as any college hitter really I've ever seen. I mean, he kind of reminds me of Tony Gwynn, and that's a pretty big compliment, obviously, as a hitter. He manages the strike zone incredibly well. Very good defensively at first base, has some good athleticism, and we're still trying to figure out the pieces, and he can run out to center field and run some balls down as well. So you may see some of that. But really looking for Trey to just take that next step in maturity and continually take those good at-bats and really not give away anything. And if he does that, he could really move up as a special player. And then I brought Jacob Berry with me from Arizona once he decided to go into the transfer portal. I mean, he had a freshman year like Dylan Cruz last year. I think he had 17 home runs and a combined 24 doubles or triples. Led the Pac-12 in RBIs as a switch hitter. And I think he'll fit in nicely with the rest of these guys. And excited to line those guys up next to each other and really not give the pitcher, any break throughout the course of the lineup or the game.
Coach, I think it's been pretty well documented that your offenses have always performed pretty well. You're kind of an offensive-minded guy. What is your philosophy at the plate? I know there's more to hitting than just, all right, hey, I want you to drive the ball here. There's more of a philosophy. There's an approach. What is your philosophy? What are you teaching these guys? What are you helping these guys understand as far as approach, place discipline, and what they're trying to do?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of layers to it, and I mean, we could sit here and talk for your entire show about this. And I think
we'll get you all mic'd up, and we can do that a lot later.
I think the first part, it starts with attitude. I mean, hitting, you hear it's a game of failure, and Hall of Famers fail 7 out of 10 times, and really kind of trying to move that to the side and say, hey, if we do the things that we need to do, we're going to be really successful. And some of these guys have real confidence. And that's going to be required, to break down some of the better pitchers in the SEC, because baseball hasn't changed. Good pitching is usually going to beat good hitting. So our job is to make it as miserable on the pitcher as we possibly can. And if you were lining up goals or targets for us, is we're not going to swing at balls. And that's something that I identified that the plate discipline, within the team and the program really needed to improve. So we worked hard on that. We want to hammer or crush mistakes, and we want to be incredibly competitive with 2 strikes. So you start there, and then that bleeds into the team element of getting the leadoff guy on base, bleeds into, having 3 quality at-bats in a row, really executing with runners at second base and no outs, and runners at third with less than 2 outs, and having this blueprint that we're constantly pushing towards, which is going to lead towards game success. And it's been a lot of fun to implement. We've kind of kept it pretty simple. And there's 2 reasons you do that. Number one is you want to make them really understand and learn what you want. And the other part is we have good players. And so I'm excited to see them, within the system. And I think the more time that we have, the better we're going to be.
I love that's winning baseball plays is that's the name of it. As far as the staff goes, I know there's a lot of question marks on your pitching staff and guys who are going to step up. And I know you mentioned a couple names early on, but there's some new guys that you brought in here. What can we expect with the staff as far as starters, back into the bullpen guys, bridge guys? How's the staff shaping up?
Yeah, so right now we have 19 pitchers. I think we are looking at 7 of those as we go into, the preseason weekends here. We have 4 weekends prior to starting where they're going to throw competitively. I think there's 7 guys we're going to extend pitch counts, I guess you could say to potentially start or go multiple innings. And then there's like 12 that we're going to use twice a week in kind of relief type deals. And so I think probably what you'll see this year is we'll use a number of guys until we figure out what the best mixing and matching is. And that could change from weekend to weekend if you're playing a heavy left-handed lineup,
right,
or a heavy right-handed lineup, a heavy speed team, heavy power team. Like I'm not going to lock us into what I would call like a dogmatic way of doing it. Mm-hmm. Myself and Coach Kelly will really look at what's best for right now in the weekend and get guys up there that are going to compete aggressively in the zone, match up good. I don't think we have a first or second round pick on the team right now in terms of this draft or the next draft. That could change, obviously, but we're trying to make the sum of the parts, better than maybe just doing it where, hey, you got a starter, you got a middle relief guy or a matchup guy and a closer. We're really going to try to set them up to be successful. Big point of emphasis was adding left-handed pitchers. Mm-hmm. We were able to add Riley Cooper, at 29 appearances for me at Arizona last year, threw incredibly well in against 3 SEC opponents that we played. Trey Schaefer, transfer from Southeastern Louisiana, who was the preseason Southland pitcher of the year last year, has a really good arm and is really competitive. So those guys will help us mix and match. Javen Coleman is a left-hander that I'm high on and has a chance to make a positive contribution. There's a lot of right-handers with good arm strength and good out pitches that I think in short stints can be really effective. So to be determined, but excited to kind of figure it out.
Jay Johnson, LSU head baseball coach, joining us here on the Jordy Culotta Show. 1 month from today, February 18th, the Tigers crank up against Maine as they will be at the box for a 6:30 start. You can feel the buzz inside of the chat, Coach, as people are looking forward to watching you in year one. What has it been like? I'm sitting right next to Mikey Matuk, who's a former All-American within your program. Yesterday, Kevin Gaussman was here. Jared Mitchell was in the studio talking about LSU baseball. There's a lot of pros in the area. There's a lot of pride of LSU baseball. I know Gaussman's been over there throwing a couple of bullpens, and Matuk's looking forward to shagging fly balls with the crew when you guys get on the practice field. But what is it like with being in that head seat as LSU's head baseball coach, and you get access to these guys and see the offseason and the pride within that program? Has it hit you yet as, I guess, how heavy of a job it is?
Oh, yeah, I'm very well aware where I'm at, and that's why I came. But with that being said, that's also why I came here.
Yeah.
And it's probably the only job in the country that I would have left the job that I was at for. And I'm excited about it. And for me, it's all about the work and putting in the work. And you can't get distracted with things on the outside. I know that's obviously, easier said than done, but, mental toughness is something that I'm trying to impart on our team. And really all that is focusing on your job, regardless of the circumstances. And I want you and all these fans to be really proud of what they see on the field. Mm-hmm. And that starts with your mindset. And so that's what we're putting our focus into. As far as like the legacy, like, Mikey and Kevin and Alex Bregman and those guys, it's pretty cool to be a part of that. Kevin was over here throwing a bullpen yesterday, and I just kind of glanced out on the warning track and I saw him shuffle his feet and throw one and long toss. And I go, that's definitely Kevin Gaussman.
That's $100 million.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and $110 million. I wanted to pull all of our pitchers out of wherever they were at that time and go like, that's what a $110 million arm looks like right there.
Get to class.
Body and an athlete. So we're going to try to get some more Kevin Gosmans running down the pipe here in the next.
Love that.
Years.
That'll
Love
work.
that, Coach.
That'll work. Real quick, Coach, some fans curious, and I guess I'm curious too. How does NIL affect baseball? I mean, everybody's talked about it with football and recruiting. How does it affect your sport?
Yeah, I think it's going to be big, and I'm excited about being here. I think you mentioned the interest in our program. Well, one way people can show that interest is to participate in using an athlete in our program and using their name, image, and likeness, and allowing them to create some value for themselves. So it's got a chance to be a big game changer. I mean, if you look at it in football, there's one program that had the number one recruiting class at least the last 6 or 7 years, and we know what program that is.
Yeah.
And this year there was a different program that was the number one recruiting class, and that's 1,000% about NIL. So, we need to get moving on that. We are doing some things creatively. We've had some success. Some of our key players have been able to take advantage of that new rule and make some money, which is great for them. I'm 100% behind it, and does have a chance to be a game changer here at LSU. And so we want to make sure we're at the forefront of that, and we need the community's help to be able to do that.
Last one, I'll get you out of here. I know it's a busy day for you. Thank you for your time. And Jay Johnson, LSU head baseball coach, joining us here on the Jordy Culotta Show. Brian Kelly said the same thing that you just said, that he wouldn't have left Notre Dame for anybody else or anyone else, any other school than LSU. You said the same about Arizona coming to LSU. Have you had a chance to meet him? And do you get the idea? I know you're in it, so on the outside we feel it. It feels like Scott Woodward has brought in a lot of power of coaches and has the right alignment, is a word that we've heard a lot from LSU over the past couple of months. Do you feel that as somebody that he's brought in to Baton Rouge and feel it around you with people like Brian Kelly and new head volleyball coach and the people that he's continuing to bring in?
Yeah, I mean, I'm honored to be here when you line up the coaches, that we have at LSU. When you talk about Coach Kelly, I think, he did a heck of a job at Notre Dame. I mean, getting to the college football playoff is not easy. And he did it a couple times, and they're winning 11 and 12 games a year and always playing a pretty good schedule. And I've always been impressed with his intensity and competitiveness, and looks like he's always willing to put in the work necessary to be at that elite level, because it takes what it takes. And for me, he looks like a great football guy, and I love football, so I pay attention to this kind of stuff.
Running back.
And he's competitive. And I think you have to have a special competitiveness to be here. And I've said this before. I think, a lot of people would be afraid to coach here because of the things that you guys talked about. Like, I'm not. I know Coach Kelly's not. Mm-hmm. Coach Mulkey, I mean, she's impressive. I mean, like, you always knew it in the 3 national championships, but that's a different level. Coach Wade's doing a great job. So I'm honored to be a part of that group, and I'm sure we're all working our tail off to do the job that everybody wants us to do here.
10 yards a carry as a senior in high school. Running back, Jay Johnson. And now LSU's head baseball coach going into year 1. A lot of excitement and buzz around your program, Coach. Looking forward to seeing the boys on the field in a month. Thank you for the time this morning.
Did they call you to play at Kansas State? Did LSU football call you for the Kansas State game?
They did not.
Oh.
Okay,
later, man.
We're a little busy in our own right.
Yeah, that's right, Coach. See you later, Coach.
Thank you, man. There's Jay Johnson checking in this morning from LSU Baseball.